Howdy, hello, and welcome to our podcast, episode number 54, Fantasy Meets Reality in this adult animated thriller. I'm Timothy, and I am here with my dear friend Tom. Today, we are going to discuss a film called Cool World. There will be spoilers. Cool World is a 1992 American live-action adult animated fantasy film directed by Ralph Bakshi, about a cartoonist who finds himself in the cartoon-like universe he thinks he created but has existed long before. The plot revolves around his seduction by one of the characters, a femme fatale, who wants to become human. First of all, I did not enjoy the film. So, Tom, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, Tim, I actually quite enjoyed it. It had a unique blend of animation styles with live-action elements that really kept my attention throughout the film. The storyline was intriguing and the characters were well developed for an animated feature. Sure, there were some plot holes and unanswered questions, but overall, I thought it was an entertaining watch. As for the actors, I have to say that I was quite impressed by Brad Pitt's performance as the voice of the character called Noonan. His delivery had just the right amount of sarcasm and self-deprecation that made his character stand out. Kim Basinger did a decent job voicing Holli Would, but her character wasn't given much depth beyond being seductive and manipulative. One aspect I particularly enjoyed was the visual design of Cool World itself. It had this dreamlike quality to it, which made the world feel both familiar and foreign at the same time. The contrast between the vibrant colors of Cool World and the more subdued tones of our reality added an extra layer of intrigue to the story. Overall, while there were some flaws in the film, I think it's a hidden gem that deserves more recognition. It's definitely worth watching if you're into adult animated films or just looking for something different from your typical Hollywood fare.
Well, I can't say I agree with you, Tom. While the visuals were certainly unique and appealing, I found the story to be convoluted and poorly executed. The premise itself is quite interesting, but it felt like there was too much going on without any real resolution or explanation. For example, we're never really given a clear understanding of why Hollywood wants to become human in the first place, or how her transformation into one would affect both worlds. Furthermore, I found the character development to be lacking, especially when it came to Jack Deebs, played by Gabriel Byrne, who seemed more like a passive observer than an active participant in his own journey. His relationship with Holly felt forced and underdeveloped, which made it difficult for me to empathize or root for them as a couple.
Well, Tim, I can see where you're coming from, but I think part of the charm of Cool World is its ambiguity. It leaves room for interpretation and allows viewers to form their own opinions about the characters and their motivations. As for Jack Deebs, I felt that he served as a catalyst for the story more than anything else. His presence in Cool World triggered a series of events which ultimately led to Holly's transformation and the ensuing chaos. And while I agree that their relationship could have been explored further, I think it added an interesting dynamic to the film with its forbidden love angle between a Noid and a Doodle. As for the plot holes and unanswered questions you mentioned, I believe they were intentional choices by Ralph Bakshi, as he wanted to create a world where not everything is explained or resolved neatly. It adds an element of realism to an otherwise fantastical story, since life doesn't always provide clear-cut answers or conclusions. Plus, it gives viewers something to discuss and debate after watching the film, which I think is part of its appeal as a cult classic. In conclusion, while we might have different opinions on Cool World's strengths and weaknesses, there's no denying that it's an ambitious and visually stunning film that pushes boundaries within both the animated and adult genres It may not be for everyone, but for those who appreciate its unique style and storytelling approach, it certainly offers plenty to enjoy and discuss long after the credits have rolled.
Well, Tom, I have to admit you make some valid points there. Despite my issues with the film, it's clear that there is a dedicated fan base who appreciate its unique qualities. Now let's shift gears and talk about some interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits about Cool World. Did you know that originally Kim Basinger was going to voice both Holli Would and her sister Witch Hazel? However, she ended up recording all of their lines together, which created a bit of confusion during production. They had to go back and change some dialogue so it would be clear which character was speaking. Another interesting fact is that Brad Pitt's character Noonan was originally written as a woman named Nina, but when they cast Pitt, they decided to make the character male instead. It's always fascinating to learn how these creative decisions shape the final product.
Indeed, Tim. Those are some fascinating insights into the making of Cool World. I remember reading that Ralph Bakshi had a bit of a tumultuous relationship with the studio while working on this film. He was known for his unconventional approach to animation and storytelling, which sometimes clashed with the expectations of the executives. This led to some creative differences during production, but ultimately contributed to the unique style and tone of Cool World. It's also interesting to note that while Brad Pitt is well known for his acting chops, this was one of his first major voice roles in an animated film. His performance as Noonan really showcased his versatility as an actor and helped elevate the overall quality of the film.
Yeah, Tom, it's always interesting to see how these creative clashes can ultimately lead to something unique and memorable like Cool World. One more behind-the-scenes tidbit for our listeners. Ralph Bakshi originally wanted Frank Zappa to compose the film's score, but due to scheduling conflict, he couldn't take on the project. Instead, they enlisted the help of Patrick O'Hearn, who did an excellent job creating an eerie and atmospheric soundtrack that perfectly captures the mood of Cool World. Overall, it just goes to show how even small changes in production can have a big impact on the final product.
That's a great point, Tim. Now, let's open up the conversation to our listeners. What are your thoughts about some of these behind-the-scenes tidbits? Did they change your perception of Cool World at all? And if you could cast anyone else in the roles of Jack Deebs or Holli Would, who would it be, and why?
Well, Tom, as we've been discussing, the making of Cool World was certainly not without its challenges. But one aspect that I think really stands out is Patrick O'Hearn's haunting and atmospheric soundtrack. It perfectly complements the film's visual style and adds an extra layer of depth to the storytelling.
Absolutely, Tim. The music in Cool World is truly one of its strongest aspects. O'Hearn's compositions perfectly capture the eerie, dreamlike quality of the film while also adding a sense of foreboding and tension when needed. I particularly love the use of the saxophone throughout the score. It adds a sort of jazzy, noirish vibe that really sets the tone for the movie.
Speaking of Tom, I think one of the most striking things about O'Hearn's soundtrack is its ability to seamlessly transition between different genres and moods. There are moments in Cool World where music feels almost playful or seductive, like during Holli Wood's dance routine. But then it quickly shifts into something darker and more ominous as the plot thickens. I think this kind of dynamic really helps to maintain viewer engagement and keeps them on their toes throughout the film.
Yes, Tim, I couldn't agree more. The soundtrack is truly an integral part of Cool World's unique charm and appeal. It adds an extra layer of intrigue to the already visually stunning film. And speaking of visuals, let's not forget about the incredible animations created by Ralph Bakshi for this movie. His use of rotoscoping technique gave the characters a distinctive look that blurred the lines between live action and animation. It was a bold choice that definitely paid off in terms of creating a visually striking and memorable film like Cool World.
Absolutely, Tom. As we've discussed, there are many aspects about Cool World that make it such a fascinating and beloved cult classic among fans. From its unique visual style to the haunting soundtrack composed by Patrick O'Hearn and the captivating voice performances from its talented cast, this film has left an indelible mark on the world of animation and adult entertainment alike. And while it may not be for everyone, there's no denying that Cool World is a masterpiece of unconventional storytelling that continues to inspire debate and discussion among fans and critics alike.
Indeed, Tim. Now let's shift our focus onto the actors and their performances in Cool World. As we all know, Kim Basinger played the lead role of Holli Would, a sultry and enigmatic character who straddles the line between cartoon and reality. Her performance is nothing short of captivating, with her seductive voice and alluring charm drawing viewers in from the very beginning. In fact, Basinger's performance was so well received that she even recorded additional dialogue for Witch Hazel after taking on the role of Holli Would. Her ability to embody both characters with ease speaks volumes about her talent as an actress.
That's a great point, Tom. Kim Basinger definitely brought her game to Cool World and delivered a standout performance that remains memorable even today. But she wasn't the only one who impressed in this film. Brad Pitt, in his first major voice role as Noonan, also turned heads with his portrayal of the disillusioned cartoonist Jack Deebs. His distinctive voice and nuanced performance added depth to a character who could have easily been reduced to a one-dimensional caricature. It's clear that Pitt has always had an impressive range as an actor. And Cool World serves as an early example of his versatility on screen.
Surely, Tim. Both Basinger and Pitt brought their unique talents to Cool World and elevated the film beyond its already impressive visuals and soundtrack. But let's not forget about Gabriel Byrne, who played the supporting role of Detective Frank Harris in this animated gem. His stern yet empathetic portrayal of the detective trying to make sense of Jack Deebs' increasingly bizarre world adds an extra layer of realism and grounding to what could otherwise have been a purely surreal experience for viewers.
Indeed, Tom. Gabriel Byrne's performance was definitely understated, but no less important in the grand scheme of things. His character served as a sort of anchor for the audience, allowing us to connect with the more grounded aspects of Cool World, while also providing some much-needed comic relief amidst all the chaos unfolding on screen. It's always interesting to see how different actors approach their roles in a film like this one. And Byrne's performance definitely adds another dimension to what could have been an otherwise overly stylized and self-indulgent affair.
I couldn't agree more, Tim. All three lead actors brought their A-game to Cool World, creating a rich tapestry of characters that are as captivating as they are complex. It's no wonder that this film has garnered such a passionate following over the years. With its unique blend of animation, live action elements, and compelling storytelling making it truly stand out in an already crowded field. And while we may not always agree on every aspect of Cool World's merits as a film, there's no denying that it remains an enduringly fascinating piece of cinematic history that continues to inspire debate and discussion among fans old and new alike.
Well, Tom, speaking of the film's unique style and approach to storytelling, I can't help but wonder if it has had any significant impact on subsequent works in the animation and adult entertainment industries. As we all know, Cool World was not without its detractors during its initial release, but over time, It has gained a cult following and even inspired numerous parodies and homages in various media. Do you think this film's artistic influence extends beyond mere pop culture references?
That's an interesting question, Tim. It's hard to say exactly how much Cool World has influenced the broader animation and adult entertainment industries, but it's certainly left its mark on both. For example, one can see echoes of Ralph Bakshi's rotoscoping technique in later films like Waking Life or A Scanner Darkly, while the film's blurring of lines between live action and animation has been revisited in shows like Archer or BoJack Horseman. As for its impact on adult entertainment specifically, well, let's just say that there are probably some animators out there who have taken inspiration from Cool World's more risk elements.
Yes, Tom. I can imagine that Cool World might have inspired some creative minds in the adult entertainment industry. However, I also think it's important to acknowledge that this film was not without its controversies during its initial release. Some critics argued that it objectified women and played into harmful stereotypes about both cartoons and animators themselves. What are your thoughts on these criticisms, and do you think they hold any weight in the context of Cool World?
Well, Tim, I can understand where those critics were coming from back then, but I also believe that we have to consider Cool World within the broader cultural context of its time. It was released in 1992, a period marked by significant shifts in attitudes towards gender roles and sexuality. While there's no denying that some aspects of the film may be problematic by today's standards, I think it's important to recognize that it was ahead of its time in terms of exploring taboo subjects like sex and power dynamics between cartoon characters and their creators. Plus, let's not forget that Holli Would is ultimately a complex character who defies easy categorization or stereotypes. She's both seductive and manipulative, which adds an interesting layer of depth to her portrayal.
That's an excellent point, Tom. It's undeniable that Cool World challenged norms and pushed boundaries during its era. And while it may not have aged perfectly due to some of these controversies, I think it remains a fascinating piece of filmmaking that continues to spark debates about artistic expression versus social responsibility. As for me, personally, I'll always appreciate the film's unique visual style and willingness to take risks in exploring themes that were considered taboo at the time.
Absolutely, Tom. It's clear that Cool World is a film that continues to resonate with audiences long after its initial release, due in large part to its thought-provoking themes and groundbreaking visual style. And while we may not always agree on every aspect of the film, I think it's important to acknowledge that it serves as an excellent example of how art can challenge our perceptions and make us question the world around us.
Well said, Tom. It's been a pleasure discussing Cool World with you once again. For those of you who are watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the film. What did you think of its unique blend of animation and live-action elements? Did it make you question any preconceived notions about artistic expression or social responsibility? And of course, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed our discussion. Until next time, happy viewing, everyone.
Thanks, Tim. And remember, folks, even if you didn't love Cool World the first time around, give it another chance. You might be surprised by how much it has to offer. Also, don't forget to check out our previous discussions on other classic films and TV shows. There's bound to be something that sparks your interest. Until next time, take care, everyone, and we hope you enjoyed our little chat about Cool World.